Good afternoon, everybody. We are sorry for the delay. We will start within 5 minutes. It is indeed fitting to dedicate an entire month to celebrating and addressing urban matters. The School of Planning and Architecture Vijayawada has consistently engaged in the initiative since its inception, and this year is no different. The Department of Planning has planned a series of events and activities for the week, who is the coordinator for online courses and learning resources for MSAP Mahi. And we extend a warm to attending this occasion. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. We once again like to welcome Deepika Shetty, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hi. Hello.
Now let's delve into the happenings of the session. First and foremost, I invite Dr. Adina Rainan, sir, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Planning, to the dais to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you. Very good afternoon. Respected Director, Professor Dr. Ramesh Srigonda, sir, Dr. Ayan Kumar Tarapta, Dean Academic, Dr. Umashankar Bazina, Head Department of Architecture, and all deans, faculties, and my dear students, friends, very good afternoon. Welcome to World Standard Day 2023, a commemoration of indispensable role that standards play in shaping our world, which we are organizing at SPA Vijayawada as a part of our month-long program titled as Urban October 2023. Is the realm of urban and regional planning, where our cities and communities are formed. Standards serve as a guiding principles. They provide universal language and best practices for more efficient planning process. Standards are backbone of our urban life, setting benchmark for infrastructure system, all physical, social, and economic infrastructure provisions and services, ensuring safety and efficiency. They also drive eco-conscious planning, balancing development with nature, addressing climate change, and managing urbanization challenges for contemporary world. Challenges persist, including the need for adaptable standards in rapidly evolving urban landscape, international cooperation in standardization, and addressing the needs of marginalized populations. We are honored to welcome today's distinguished guest, Ms. Uma Adusumulli, former Chief Planner, MMRPA, who was also convener the workshop group in Bureau of Indian Standard (BIS) for town planning and involved in formulation of URTPFI guidelines, Urban and Regional Development Plan Formulation and Implementation Guidelines, who have joined us in person today on campus. Thank you for joining us, madam. And the second expert, Ms. Deepika Shetty, former Head Department of Planning, at Manipal University and an integral member in formation of RADPFI, Rural Area Development Plan Formulation Implementation Guidelines, who have joined us on time. Thank you, madam. We look forward to their insightful presentations, inspiring our students and faculty colleagues at SPAV. Once again, thank you for joining this knowledge journey on World Standards Day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those insightful words. Now I request Dr. Ayan Kumar Tarafdar, Dean Academics SPAV, to share his thoughts on today's event. So please.
So good afternoon, all of you. I think some of you were here last week, and this is the second in the series of Urban October, and a very interesting topic once more, like last time, standards. Most of you who are into planning already know that standards do exist. So many, because we deal with so many sectors. There are standards with respect to roads, with respect to water supply, with respect to anything which we plan. Standards do exist, but do we have standards in the way we should make master plans, the process in which the master plans are developed, the maps are developed, the guide, we have guidelines, URDPFI and RADPFI. But why are they not called standards? There's so many things which can be discussed and which can be clarified in our minds, and nothing better than having two very significant speakers with us. One is Uma ma'am, who has a long association with our institute from over 10 years, and also having so many years of experience as the chief planner of perhaps the most significant city of our country, second most or most, Mumbai. So, and also we also have joining virtually Professor Deepika, who has worked on the rural guidelines, planning formulation guidelines. So let us hear from them and then slowly clarify our minds that actually we have standards and we are implementing them, or we are moving towards standards and implementing them. Thank you. Let us make this worthwhile. There'll be more of these kind of things coming up in Urban October. I hope all of you keep coming back and joining, offline or online. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. Uma Shankar Basina, HOD, Department of Architecture, to address the gathering. So please.
Good afternoon, one and all. We again extend our thankfulness to our director, sir, for enabling this particular program. And under the leadership of Dr. Adi Narayan, sir, like this Urban October is a very looking forward kind of a series of talks related to planning. That is one what do you say, knowledge sharing experiences. Now, being India, let's say, as on the path to becoming maybe a Vishwa Guru, or that is the kind of goal that is being set, in the Amrit Kal, during the Amrit Kal. So, are we as the greatest nation, or one of the greatest nation, are we having, or are we setting standards which maybe the other world countries can really look up and then maybe adopt? Because, say for example, US FDA or some of the standards, no one else can say if that standard, if particular product is what is called qualifying that particular standard, no one else in the world puts up any query on that. But now, as with so much of wonderful population in our country, and then are we setting up standards which may be more applicable, or which can be really guiding for many nations or otherwise? So looking forward to very knowledge-laden, sessions. And once again, I congratulate the Department of Planning for organizing such thought-provoking and wonderful sessions. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request the dignitaries on the dais to join the audience for the proceedings of today's event. Next on schedule, we have the address on World Standards Day by our Honorable Director of School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada, Professor Dr. Ramesh Srikonda, sir. Professor Dr. Ramesh Srikonda boasts a rich academic and professional background with a postgraduate diploma in ecology and environment from the Institute of Ecology and Environment in Delhi and a PhD from IIT Delhi. In his professional journey, he has held various significant roles within the Government of India, including Deputy Architect, Regional Architect, Senior Architect, Chief Architect, and Director of Planning. He began his academic career in 2010 as a professor at the Department of Architecture in School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada, where he later assumed key positions like head of department for both architecture and planning department. In September 2022, he was appointed as the director of SPAV. Unfortunately, due to certain prior engagements, our director sir is unable to join us for the occasion. However, he has expressed his wishes for the occasion in a pre-recorded tape. Let's give it a listen.
Thank you. Greetings from School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada. Welcome to all deans, HODs, faculty and staff for this World Standards Day 2023. My special thanks to both the speakers, Ms. Deepika Sethi and Madam Uma Arsmani. I am honored to address you all today as we commemorate World Standards Day, an occasion that allows us to reflect the pivotal role that standards play in shaping our world and ensuring its continued process. Urban and regional planning in its foundation upon which our cities and communities are built. It sets a stage for how we live, work and play. And these standards especially, they act as guidelines, like a guiding stars as such we can say like that, in this complex and intricate process. They provide us with a common language that sets some best practices to follow, facilitating a seamless and efficient planning process. Standards are vital for improving urban life. They set benchmark for infrastructure, housing, transportation and services, making our cities safer and more efficient. Not only they enhance quality of life, but leads the way in creating environmental conscious plans that protects our planet. They help us balance development with nature, addressing climate change and global population growth. Further, without standards, measuring the success of the planning efforts would be challenging. It also imperative to recognize that while we have made sufficient strides in this field, we are still have challenges and potential areas of research that requires our attention. One of the foremost challenges in the realm of urban planning standards is the need for greater adaptability and flexibility to adapt and adapting to the constantly evolving urban areas. Other challenge is the global nature of urbanization, the need for international cooperation in standardization. Research should also delve into how standards can better address the needs of vulnerable and marginalized population, ensuring that urban development is equitable and just. At the outset, we at SPAV are delighted to have with us two distinguished guests who have made remarkable contribution in the field of urban and regional planning and standards development. Firstly, I would like to extend our warmest welcome to Ms. Deepika Sethi, the head of the Department of Planning at Manipal University, who has been instrumental in preparing of RADFI guidelines, which has significantly improved the rural planning process. Our second guest is Ms. Uma Arsmani, a former director of MMRDA and current convener of the working group in the Bureau of Indian Standards for Town Planning Standards. In her position, she plays a critical role in shaping standards that guide urban development in our country. In conclusion, I eagerly anticipate these engaging presentations by experts and ensuring discussions which will not only enlighten and also improve our knowledge levels. In addition to that one, it inspires our students and faculty of SPA. My special thanks to the coordinators, Dr. Adinarayane, Dr. Arpan Pal Singh, and Mr. Rajiv for organizing this kind of a very important program and standards on this World Standards Day 2023. Thank you to one and all. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for those enlightening words, very specifically about adaptability and inclusivity in terms of standards. With great honor, I introduce our keynote speaker of the day, Ms. Uma Edusumali, former Chief Planner at MMRDA and currently convener of Working Group Town Planning Standards CIS. Uma Edusumali holds a Master's in Science in Urban Housing Management from Institute of Housing and Urban Development Studies, Rotterdam, the Netherlands, in conjunction with Lund University in Sweden in 2003. She also earned a Master's of Planning in Specialization in Housing from School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi in 1987. Ms. Adisumali represented India in international comparative research projects supported by British DFID and Inter-American Development Bank from 1995 to 2004. These projects focused on housing for lower income groups, emphasizing aspects such as land supply, regulatory frameworks, and partnerships. She has made noteworthy contributions by publishing and presenting papers at various urban development and management forums. Since 2004, Uma Edusumali has served as head of regional planning division in MMRDA, Mumbai Metropolitan Regional Development Authority. Her responsibilities include regional planning, development, financing, and coordination. Prior to her role in MMRDA, she worked as urban planner at City and Industrial Development Corporation of Maharashtra, CIDCO, a government agency responsible for town planning and development from 1989 to 2004. She has also been visiting our campus quite frequently as a member of review panel for numerous juries in the department. Ma'am, I invite you to address the gathering.
It won't appear on the laptop here, right? Yeah, that will be more useful. I am loud enough. No. Is this working? Yeah. Also loud. Yeah. Thank you. I welcome all of you to the discussion on the importance of standards for spatial planning. Love with standards starts the day we start learning planning in schools, and then it really continues through our professional career in whichever sector we are working later. That became my passion when I was working. But my explanation of the standards and their use and adaptability on ground comes from the experience of my having worked in the government on plans and their implementation, particularly when I was working on the project of Navi Mumbai, which was a newly developing town, which had this special dispensation of the entire land being in government ownership. So the ground for experimenting with planning, the process of planning, making planning people-friendly and implementing most of the plan that was made, developing standards for the city and watching how the standards are actually shaping the city and
doing course correction through the whole process on the fully government project was a great experience. That's once in a lifetime kind of experience. We don't experience the same level of joy of doing planning and implementing it when we work on a non-plan, not so advanced plan city. Uh, then we moved to regional planning as was explained, and in regional planning, the standards are very different. We are not talking about the same city level standards. They are very different when you move to the regional level. We will discuss all of that now. There are different kinds of standards prepared in India. The word standards is a bit more sounding like statutory, more like legally implementable. However, the original intention of preparing planning standards was to prepare them as guidelines in India or anywhere else, and therefore they were referred to as planning norms. In practice, we call them more norms, and they are advisory and they are suggestive in nature. But in course of time, to remove the subjectivity of using them very selectively by individual planners, they became referred to as standards, and they are far more applied, more like legal instruments today. And standards in India are prepared by different institutions, planning standards for spatial development. One is UDPAFI and URDP. URDPAFI. And small correction from my biodata, I have not worked on that document. I was not part of the but I am the convener of the working group on preparing standards and then planning standards and then the Bureau of Indian Standards, which is ongoing at the moment. And it's not concluded job, so I won't specifically discuss those today. And various state governments have prepared planning standards and regulations as part of regulations for the entire state. In many states, or some states have done it for different sizes of cities, for A class cities, B class cities, and B class cities, etc. In the state of Maharashtra, where my entire working experience is from, the traditionally planning standards, there is a guideline at the state level, but the standards are also explained in each city plan. The plan document, the report contains what planning standards are adopted in that city plan, and therefore, and there are also building and planning regulations specifically for each plan in the state of Maharashtra. So the plan contains three parts. One is the map, second is the report, and third is the development control regulations. So to me, even today, it appears that that is the of doing evolving standards at the city level, because each plan and each city is different from the other. While there can be some standardized regulations and standards for the whole state or whatever, but there should be many more specific guidelines and standards and regulations that go with the specific plan that is made for the city. A lot of things are compatible with plan. So there are plan authorities made stand also, and a lot of studies have shown comparative analysis of plan standards that exist in India. They don't give any great revealing picture. It shows great variation that exists in the country across states, across cities, and the various national standards that were suggested in the past. And as we know, as we move from the center of the nation, Delhi, and institutions associated with Delhi, the institutions present in Delhi, reporting to the ministry in the Government of India, have particular way of defining standards. The standards are compared to the rest of the country very high, and so, in fact, except in academic discourses, a lot of national standards are not really adopted in schools because they are extremely high compared to the situations in our organizations. There is one specific aspect of these standards that standards are set accordingly. Plans indicate plot meant for implementing those standards. However, These locations are movable in each city under law, provided they are part of a town planning scheme. If they are part of a town planning scheme, you can move them around. If there are two schools and a playground and a wastewater treatment site and salt waste management site indicated, and truck terminal indicated in a plan in a particular locality, and if a larger area is being taken up for development under town planning scheme, these can be moved up within the scheme. Similarly, across the country, there is a dispensation that in a city, if there is there are certain locations based on the standards indicated for amenities and utilities, and if a single landowner is developing a large part of land, not necessarily under town planning scheme, but there is a large developer or landowner who is undertaking development within that parcel of land, large parcel of land, whatever parcels are identified for implementing the standards are allowed to be moved within that. Some states say that you can move the school from the original approved plan location if it is your own land, within your land, provided it's not more than so many meters from the original location. Or some other such conditional moves are allowed. So this is one aspect of implementation standards which creates some issues but also gives some flexibility. I am stating certain things here taken from a presentation by Mr. J.T. Kester. None of you may know him. He's no more. He was the director of town planning in the state of Maharashtra for a long period, and he is a very favored person by all of us. He's like God for us in the state of Maharashtra. He retired probably from 35 years ago. Okay. Am I sounding? Is it okay? So and he used to be so correct at things that he said about many subjects related to planning that I happened to be present in one of his presentations. He was making to in a training institute to professional planners, and I took some notes, and from that I have written this. What are planning standards actually? Planning standards or norms indicate a reasonable amount of land area for efficient conducting of different activities that are related to human beings. And what does it mean? For example, if number of schools are defined, medical facilities per housing population are defined, religious places are defined, or public institutions are defined, or hostels are defined, or open spaces are defined, sports facilities are defined. These are all defined as a standard in such a way that if you conduct a school in 4,000 square meters of land, construct a school, it's supposed to function more efficiently, put land to more efficient use, at the same time give the appropriate constructed and unconstructed space to the people who are attending activities in the school, students, faculty, visitors, etc. So that's how you evolve the standard, as explained by all those who introduced the subject today. It also gives kind of efficient way of delivering these services and to provide them in a uniform manner, so that we all don't do our own subjective thinking. If I think 4,000 square meters is good for school, you might think why not 2,000, why not 1,000? And all of us are working in the field, so we may adopt different standards, different figures. Therefore, standards make them uniform. And they are incorporated as part of regulations if it is fit to be a regulatory instrument, and some of them are adopted as a norm, as a guiding principle for us while planning. To give an example, if we say that a tot lot or a room size for bedroom should be 100 square feet minimum or 10 square meters minimum, why should it be exactly 100 square meters minimum? It's built into a regulation now. That's part of building control regulations, development control regulations, that no habitable room, including a bedroom, shall be less than 10 square meters or 9 square meters in area. How does this get calculated is, as per medical and scientific information, while sleeping, each person requires to have air air changes 3 times in a night. And to each air, to have this 3 times air changes, it requires 450 cubic feet of airspace. And assuming that at least 2 persons are sleeping in a room in the night, it means 900 cubic feet of airspace volume is required. So, on 450 square feet multiplied by 2 is 900 square feet for 2 persons. So, 900 square feet, assuming that room is 9 feet high, results in 100 square feet room. So, this is the way it's calculated, and these are built into the regulatory system itself. But there are others, like in a school, each pupil requires 1 square meter space in the classrooms. So there are more spaces than classrooms, other than classrooms also required in the school, office rooms, and passages, auditoria, labs, etc. So normally it's expected that it is double. If the pupil requires 1 square meter per classroom, a pupil ratio of the school becomes 2 square meters, let's say. And this is a norm. Since we don't know how many students are going to be in a given school, it's very difficult to define the minimum school area or classroom area as a regulatory instrument. Therefore, it is calculated as a standard at the rate of 2 square meters per person, per student. And accordingly, depending on the school size and location, it may be used while implementing the standard. So that's how these are calculated, but both indicate very clearly that you follow this norm while you are practicing as a planner, and not leaving it to too much of our subjectivity. Then reservations is a word used. I'm not sure in how many states in India, but Gujarat and Maharashtra definitely use the word reservation. Reservation is referred to, the area is referred to as reservation on a master plan or development plan if a particular area is designated for a social amenity or a public utility as per the standard. If the standards says that 2 square meters per person per student should be there in a school, accordingly it's calculated for a school and earmarked on a plan as a school. That parcel of land on a map on the statutory master plan is referred to as reservation. And in some states, at least in India, in other areas, they may be called schools. So public purpose reservations is the word used in Maharashtra. So the purpose may be health, education, social, cultural, scientific, any other kind of institution, religious purposes, or any other open space, etc. So these reservations are explained by Mr. Keskar. If you think of them, they are advanced, in advance kind of allocation of land required for conducting that particular activity till the time the plan is in force. Suppose we make a plan in 2023, master plan of Vijayawada, and the plan period is 20 years, let's say. So it is the master plan of Vijayawada 2023 to 2043. So whatever is the population expected in 2043 is projected, and how many schools are required for that period till 2043 are calculated, and that many schools minus existing schools are earmarked as new locations in the master plan, and therefore they are advanced locations for the year 2000 up to the year 2003. However, they may be developed in stages, but if they are developed in stages and shown on land, they are like deferred land acquisitions. Land acquisition today may not be done for all of them, but they are kind of land requirement for acquisition as indicated on the plan. So the actual acquisition is deferred or postponed to a future date as and when required. So these are deferred land acquisition proposals, these reservations, and they have two considerations, two principles. One is they should be adequate for the plan period 2043 till then, and they should have they should keep in mind a practical compensation mechanism, because land acquisition cannot happen at no cost. Nobody will give land, their own land. If I indicate a school on your land, you will not part with your land so easily. So there should be mechanisms. There should be mechanisms for acquisition of that, and there should be allocations for compensating that in monetary or any other fashion. So these are supposed to be guidelines, but To remove subjectivity, they became slowly over a period of time as good as regulatory instruments, and they became mandatory. For while preparing a plan, we must state which standards we are following in the book and follow them, show them on the master plan. And if there are under extreme situations, if you say that there should be 10 schools for Vijayawada, but you are able to show in the master plan only 8, there should be great explanation in the document why such shortage is being proposed. And while the plan is being approved by the government and its associated departments which are involved in approving the plan will go greatly into the details of the standards. While approving, they may reject the whole master plan or send it for revision and resubmission if they don't agree with this deficiency of 2 schools, for example, or they may agree with the logic, whatever. So, the planning standards were introduced in the state of Maharashtra in 1954. Why I'm coming back to Maharashtra is also because one reason is because I know only Maharashtra, and second reason is Maharashtra led the way in the field of town planning for the whole country. Even today, all states follow what Maharashtra starts in terms of town planning. There are certain innovations in other states, but in terms of town planning law, regulatory framework, and the evolution of standards and the methods of preparing plans, for all of that, Maharashtra acts as the guideline. So, in 1954, that was the first time it was introduced. Before that, there were other kinds of plans during the British times, but in 54, there was a comprehensive plan making mechanism, and along with standards were introduced. But there was a need felt for revising the standards from time to time because times change, human behavior changes, trends in the behavior of people changes, lifestyle changes, and there are technological advancements, and population growth tremendously increased, there may be receding. So based on all of this, it is necessary that from time to time the standards are revised. So these 1954 made standards were revised by the state of Maharashtra in 1979. They were further revised in 2001, but the 2001 revision is not yet approved by the government. Imagine, after 22 years, it's not yet approved. Therefore, the government tends to follow 1979. However, since none of these standards are statutory, not like regulations, if a city wants to really make a case and adopt 2001 rationalized standards, they can do so, explain in their plan document, plan report, and government is likely to approve them. So why are these revised from time to time anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world? Is because urban and other areas are rapidly expanding and land values are rapidly changing, and therefore urban expansion means more and more amenities are required with the population, tune with the population, and land value increases means that government's ability to compensate for the land acquisition towards these implementation of standards is becoming less and less. Therefore, there is a lot of rethinking on the manner of acquisition of those lands. Innovation is happening in that. The other reason why there is need for revision is a lot of amenities which were traditionally being provided by the municipalities and the state governments and central governments are today being provided by the market. Private schools, for example, and private health facilities, they are there from before you were born. Since the time I was born, private sector started giving these services to people. And while giving these services, they may use the land that is indicated as meant for example, health facility in the master plan, buy that land and build a facility there. Or today, the master plans are being prepared in a manner where the land uses are broad indicators. If I say residential zone in the master plan of Mumbai, the development control regulations say what are the activities permitted in the residential zone. So in the residential parcel of land in the residential zone, you may permit residential, you may permit commercial of certain kind, you may permit schools of up to certain level, you may permit open spaces of certain kind, you may permit a library, you may permit something, etc. So the regulations are also permitting on lands meant for residential or commercial or some other industrial purpose, allowing certain activities in those land uses. Therefore, a person who wants to build a private school may not necessarily go for the land reserved for a school. in the master plan. They may also go to any other land use and look at the regulations. If that school is permitted, primary school is permitted there, or a creche is permitted there, he or she may do so. Therefore, the standards need to be revised looking at this aspect as well. And also there are changes in demographic profile of people. The composition of population is changing. The number of people, students, number of people in the school going age group or working age groups is changing, and therefore standards need revision from time to time. And there are also lifestyle changes. There are a lot of things which we are conducting without going to the real space. So standards need revision. And there are also technological advancements based on which a lot of things can be done in a smaller space. Therefore, standards need revision. And the current approach is that these norms and standards should be kept to the minimum activities. We have recently, I was part of many committees that revised standards in the state of Maharashtra. And in some committees, we have taken a view that if you look at the traditional list, then let's say there are 43 elements in planning standards for social amenities. We have removed, let's say, 25. That they no longer require land reservations on land, because if you identify a small parcel of land, let's say 200 square meters for creche, for toddlers. And then that's 200 square meters can have a small creche. It was calculated traditionally, assuming that it's a ground floor structure and it requires such appurtenant open spaces around it. Therefore, it requires 200 square meters. But today, no one is buying land, or no municipality is actually acquiring and conducting that activity in such a parcel of land. It may be being in a housing complex, maybe on 7th floor, on a little parcel of constructed area. Maybe the developer is allowing creche, renting it out for a creche. So we don't know how these things are happening, and we actually know. So therefore, those things are removed from planning standards. Such things that are happening very in a compatible manner in other activities. And there used to be marriage halls as reservation, activity halls, so community centers. A lot of them are removed in many states from standards because there are multi-function auditoria or exhibition centers or halls being built in which marriages, any other ceremony, then conventions, exhibitions, all of them are happening in single spaces. So these are being provided by private sector, and they are permitted activities in any land use. Therefore, they are being removed. Then they should be kept to the minimum numbers and minimum amount of land requirement for that, because we are not discussing built-up area exactly as equivalent to the land area. There was a time when I started planning my career as planner, floor space indices used to be 1 across the country in general, or lower than 1. So if we assume that a school requires 4,000 square meters of built-up area, so 4,000 square meters of land was sufficient for that, was required for it. But now, if things are being constructed with more floor space index or floor area ratio, on 4,000 square meters of land, maybe 15,000 square meters is being built. So therefore, these associations are changing. Therefore, it should be kept to the minimum land area, and number of items for which standards are to be evolved are to be minimum. And on single land, multi-activities are also being conducted. And what are the features of any of these lands reserved for public purpose? One is that at city level, they should be spatially distributed in a hierarchical manner. If you look at open spaces, there should be city level open space, then sub-city level open space, then district level open spaces, then sector level open spaces, neighborhood level open spaces. So there are many ways each city defines them. And then each of them has very specific location criteria, because a lot of transportation happens to a school, and the school is having small children, their safety is involved. They cannot be on a very huge road where while crossing, children can come across some threat from the road. And there are a lot of parents who gather to drop and pick up children. Therefore, in assembly, it is also an assembly space at specific times of the day. And there are other activities being permitted in school buildings. There are other public gathering activities or examinations of some other kind, or some competitions are being held. So the school is playing all these activities. Therefore, its location is extremely important, and it has a lot of sounds. I share my compound wall in Vijayawada with a school, very big school, and with a huge playground, Siddhartha Public School. And therefore, the amount of noise and the amount of movement of traffic, I mean, I can't get out of my house at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I cannot go in any direction because the whole area gets jammed. So a school also has these kind of traffic generating and noise creating activities. Therefore, there are compatibility issues also. Therefore, location is very important. And when we come to a school site, having decided on a particular school site, the aspects that are important to be considered is, I'm giving the example of school, it could be anything. The area, how much area are we allocating? What are the minimum dimensions? If we say that a school should have 4,000 square meters, it should not be 10 into whatever 400 meters. So even a playground or a tot lot or any other health institutional building, they have to have area definition and also one minimum dimension. One site should be defined in general. So the dimensions also matter for efficient conducting of that activity. And access, approach road, and access also means restrictions on entry. Access to a playground, access to a garden means not only the road, approach road, but access also means whether I get a free access to the playground. Can I go to a playground and garden throughout the day? Or are there restricted hours? Or can I go freely? Or do I have to pay a ticket? All these come under access and restrictions. Then the actual development of the facility. How well is the school or playground or health facility or a library developed? And what activities do really take place there? And what is the usage? Who uses? Which age groups use? What are their specific requirements? And how is the building or space maintained? We did conduct some years together kind of studies on open spaces and water bodies in the city of Mumbai. The study took 4 years. And that study showed such revealing facts about what is happening to the open space and water bodies in the city of Mumbai. How are they distributed? What is the popular imagination? Mumbai doesn't have space. Everybody says Mumbai, in Mumbai you can't even perceive an open space, and it's completely lacks. And people in seminars say 0.0001 square meter per person. I don't know from where they get such things, but very casually things are said about any city, for example. And for regarding Mumbai, everybody thinks it's the highest highly dense city, and it lacks total amenities and facilities. So when you say that, when you do a study and to back up any information on such things, it's very revealing. So these usage studies are also very important, and maintenance and adaptability kind of things. So standards are there for social amenities and as well as public utilities. What qualifies as social amenities? Just to give some example, health, education, and all kinds of institutions, public, semi-public kind of open spaces they are referred to as in some cities. Then recreational open spaces, then sports and playgrounds, then places of worship, libraries and museums, then, sorry about the spelling of museum, auditoria, cinema halls, community halls, marriage halls. Then there are city centers in some cities. In some states, city centers or district centers are also treated as social amenities. And public utilities have all communications things, then police departments, then water storage and water treatment, sewage treatment plants, crematory and burial grounds, solid waste management grounds, then transport terminals, etc. There are many more depending on the type of city. So this is the general things regarding which we are talking. Then why is this important? Is one of the noblest things you can think of. Think about planning and standards. Planning is, I have always held this personal opinion that planning is like sacred. The plans are sacred because they try to do the most judicious allocation of land to various purposes in a scenario where land is very, very, very finite. And therefore, justice to land is more important than justice to landowner. Doing justice to landowner after doing land use allocation is another subject altogether. Therefore, the sacredness with which we see, like judgments, land use allocation, similarly, these standards are guarantees to citizens of a city through a plan, almost like fundamental rights. If master plan shows a school here and that school doesn't get ever built, people can take the municipality or planning authority to courts, any level of courts, and you will win hands down. Therefore, these are guarantees, and these are guarantees shown on a piece of paper. So it's like universal education, universal housing. When government says if that is not provided, you can drag them to courts, but they are as good as your fundamental rights. So therefore, the more delay you do in implementing these, achieving these standards, is more justice delayed or denied at a later stage. Therefore, that is the seriousness with which these things are to be seen. And importance of these facilities is realized by even a common man. Even though people argue a lot, why do you require to allocate so much space to a school or a playground or a library? But when dramatic things happen in cities or any other habitation, the importance of these things is realized by common citizen also. Like during these pandemics and epidemics, how important these places play. A school during floods, during tsunami, or during an earthquake, or during a man-made kind of conflict situation or war. How do we provide shelter, then evacuation, and take care of their temporary needs? All this is possible because the standards ensure that there are certain amenity spaces in the city which are not meant for living. There are very interesting housing schemes under the categories of sites and services. Those of you who are in masters or later years of bachelor's course in planning may have heard about the sites and services for the poor. This is a global concept, and where sites with infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and land reservations for social infrastructure are allotted just as sites to poor people, because to keep the cost low, and then at their own ability, as and when their ability improves, they construct incrementally on the parcels of land. So while sites and services was a very important way of delivering housing to the poor in developing countries across the world, starting from 1970s to early 2000s, in big cities it has vanished today because we no longer have that kind of land that can be plotted and given to each individual family. So sites and services is one very interesting housing experience globally. Similarly, there was an experience called sites without service. A long time ago, when I was doing my PG diploma in Europe in '93, I did my thesis on this, sites without services. What happens when you do provide sites without services? You can give them even more cheaply because you're not providing services. What happens? I did a global study of where all this happened and what happened to those layouts subsequently. So there are examples in Brazil. There are examples in Tanzania. There are examples from Colombia. There is an example from Vijayawada, by the way. I never studied that example. I didn't get enough written literature about it. In 80s, there were sites without services created in Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh and some place in Orissa under a British government funded program. Someday I'll find out what happened to those schemes. But the subsequent review shows that there was a great social disorder on account of not providing services, both physical infrastructure as well as social infrastructure. So the children who grew up in these housing schemes, in the absence of schools and playgrounds and open spaces and library and any other such health community activities, particularly space for having such community activities, grew up in a different kind of environment, and they had no activity to spend their time on, no space to conduct their time on different activities. Therefore, that resulted in kind of behavioral changes, conflicts, crime, and it had negative impact on both people's health and people's behavior pattern. So subsequently, all these sites without services experiences are abundant across the world. But all this happened during 80s, mostly 80s. To my knowledge, late 70s to late 80s. Then inadequacy in planning standards in terms of their implementation on grounds. On ground happens on account of. Should I fast track? Yeah. Inadequate implementation of standards on ground happens on account of several factors. One is the plan itself not providing adequate numbers as per the standard, or not providing them at the right locations. So it creates some kind of imbalance on the ground. All open space in one sector, the other sector not having any open space, etc. Or non-acquisition of land that is meant for these amenities by the municipalities or planning authorities over a long period of time due to lack of funds, or since nobody cares, non-accountability on part of the government officials who are involved, or litigation. I am the landowner. There is a public purpose shown on my land, a health facility shown on my land. I go to court. So the litigation happens, or I show kind of reluctance to part with my land. So I drag endlessly this issue, or the land is already occupied for something else. We put a reservation of land, but there is already something happening, or after we put the reservation, the landowner, in order to avoid the acquisition of land, this happens very frequently in Mumbai, Maharashtra. To avoid government taking over that land, I put a slum on it. I actively encourage development of Islam. Or something, or I myself put some unauthorized structure there, or then it goes endlessly thereafter. So these things are one of the reasons. Then population increases beyond the plan expectation, and the growth doesn't happen in a uniform fashion. One area in like Bandar Road grows very well. Hyderabad Road doesn't. This side colonies don't grow. So there is uneven distribution of these facilities. Plan expects that everything will grow equally. Then there are density and FSI changes. The subsequent regulations, plan remains same, but the FSI is doubled by the government. Our side margins are reduced, so you can build so much more on the same piece of land. So if you build so much more, there is the holding capacity of that plot is much higher in terms of population holding capacity. What is meant for having 10 apartments is now having 40 apartments. So there are more people. So more people means more facilities are required. The plan didn't anticipate this. So they fall short. Our land use changes, which were not anticipated at the time of plan making. Subsequently, governments change the rules and say that on residential, you can also do total commercial. It's a permitted activity. One day they make a change, and then what you anticipated does not happen, something else happens. So the standards fall lower or they become higher. Then, particularly with open spaces, when the government increases FSI, if it's for instead of 10 tenements, 40 tenements happen, then one school which was meant for these 10 people now becomes only 1/4 applicable. So what governments do cleverly, they increase the FSI of the school also. So the school building also becomes multi-storied, and that solves the problem of constructed part of the school. But then what about the children's play area? Or public open spaces, public playgrounds, sports facilities? They are land-based, so they cannot increase. Therefore, you feel short. Particularly, this is felt in terms of open space. Then physical infrastructure augmentation is comparatively easy. Increasing the water supply for more people, increasing sanitation for more people, carrying their solid waste and treating their sewage and recycling, whatever is comparatively easy. What is difficult is all these, especially open space based social amenities and also the road infrastructure. These are the ones that cannot expand with the FSI. Therefore, they suffer. Then they fall short of the standard. Then built amenities, as I said, they can also receive high FSI. But one of the suggestions made in Mumbai, we have been arguing with the government regarding this for a long time, but they have not yet agreed, is that every municipality, while presenting the budget, must pronounce and in the annual budget plan implementation budget. How much are they allocating for plan implementation? Within that, how much is for land acquisition and how much is for development of the facility? They sporadically under the general budget they indicate some land acquisition for a school this year, etc. But it doesn't follow the pattern as to the plan period is from 2023 to 43, and there are 40 schools to be newly developed. There are 20 health facilities. There are 2 museums, 10 open spaces in the master plan. So therefore, in order to achieve this in 20 years, in tune with the population growth, how many are required this year? How many are required next year? So if 2 schools are required before the end of next year, where is the entire picture for acquisition of 2 schools? So it should be plan and implementation phase-based kind of budgetary allocation. That could be one possibility of improving. So when we come to the methods of implementation, why is this important? Because as we just discussed in the previous slide, funds are never adequate. So they cause either delay or it doesn't ever get realized, even if it is shown on the plan. And there is another legal instrument that if a particular parcel of land is earmarked for a social amenity based on a standard and shown on a master plan which is approved, then within a certain number of years, 10 years in Maharashtra, that land must be acquired by the government, whoever is in charge. If it is not acquired and the procedures are not initiated, then the acquisition, the reservation lapses. That land will go back to the owner as if it is meant for residential. So he or she can go ahead and construct residential. So this is called lapse of reservation. So this lapse of reservation is a legal instrument available under law. Therefore, in order to avoid that, also governments need to implement the reservations quickly. So the instruments, now we agree that we don't have funds. Municipalities don't have funds. So what are the alternatives to acquiring these lands or getting in possession of these lands without paying money for it? One is what is being used across India, started in 1991 in Maharashtra, initially in Mumbai, is transfer of development rights, TDR. So if my land is kept under a health reservation, I offer to surrender my land to the government in lieu of transferable development right. So government gives me a certificate that I have surrendered my 100 square meters of land to the municipality, and in return, I'm entitled to 100 or 200 or 400, whatever, square meters of constructed area on a piece of land, which I can use on my other parcels of land if I have elsewhere, or I can sell it in the open market to some other developer. Most of you might be knowing the terminology TDR now. So for all public purpose reserved lands, this provision is applied. In Maharashtra, in most cities, it is applied now. Part of the development control regulation directly. Therefore, people and the municipality then can get hold of this land at zero price. So, and then there are certain rules associated with this. If somebody is handing over their parcel of land for a playground, let's say, the playground should be unencumbered when they hand over to the municipality. In the sense, unencumbered means one is that it's under their legal ownership. It doesn't have litigation, and it's vacant. It's leveled, and it's compounded, fenced, and it should be handed over there. It should have an access, and it should be handed over. So, when municipality takes over such land, it's very easy for them to either construct, or if they still feel that they don't have funds for constructing, can I have some water, please? So, and certain TDR provisions also say that by giving a constructed amenity to the municipality, not only land, if the landowner constructs a school and hands over, then they get even higher TDR in lieu of the construction. Either they get cost of construction or they get TDR, more TDR. So this is one instrument. What are the issues related with this instrument, implementing this instrument? It's a choice to the owner. Government cannot say, municipality cannot say, you give your land to me and you take TDR. That's certificate. It cannot be enforced under law because land taking, government can take someone's land in this country under constitution only by paying compensation. So if you compulsorily take somebody's land, it's only by compensation. So you give another parcel of land or you give money. So when you take land, when governments take land from somebody, it's it has to be compensated, and if it is not compensated, it has to be voluntary by the landowner. It cannot be compulsory. Therefore, if I am taking TDR and giving my land to the municipality, it's an option given to, it's an option available to me and not to the municipality. Municipality cannot say, I will not acquire, you give me the land by taking TDR. So it's an option. So if they don't choose to exercise that option, then we are stuck again in the government youth implementation. When will they not choose it? Because it's a market instrument. I will, instead of my land, I am getting a piece of paper by which I can transfer my development to some other parcel of land. Suppose the city has a lot of vacant lands. It's a still developing city. There are a lot of suburban areas. I can buy land cheaply. Then I will not take TDR. Why will I take TDR? I would rather use my money and buy land elsewhere. So TDR market doesn't operate efficiently if lands are cheaply available. So nobody will buy my TDR. Or they will give me so little money that I will not agree to pass my land. So it's a market-related instrument. Therefore, markets all buyers built into that. So restrictions on consumption. So TDR can be loaded on some parcels of land to a certain extent. If everybody has consumed TDR, then you can't consume any more TDR. Unless another innovation happens later. So it's, there are some in Mumbai when it was introduced. It was said that southern Mumbai is very dense. It's called Island City of Mumbai. So Island City, if it generates TDR from that area, I'm currently my road reservation land from Island City, I can consume in Island City or anywhere else in the city. But if I'm giving up my land in suburban area of Mumbai, I cannot consume that TDR in Island. I cannot utilize that on a parcel of land in Island City because it's already done. And all railway tracks are required some safety distance. Therefore, from railway track up to a certain distance, this TDR cannot be consumed on other buildings. So therefore, there were certain restrictions. There are still restrictions. Slums get TDR. If I do some development, then I can get TDR. For roads, I can get. For schools, I can get. For everything, I can get TDR. But all of us use only road TDRs. Other amenities cannot get built. Therefore, government also puts restrictions as to if I am a landowner or a developer, I am consuming some, I am buying TDR from market and business, then I can use only in proportions. If I am using 100 square meters of TDR, 50 only I can use from those. 50 I can use from other facilities. TDR related from other facilities. So because of restrictions, TDR has a limited market. Depending on the type of city, it has market. Therefore, there are issues with TDR. Secondly, accommodation reservation. This is a word that doesn't exist on paper anywhere, but this is the most commonly used terminology. Again, in the state of Maharashtra, this is you implement the reservation on the same piece of land as private owner. Suppose on my land, school is reserved. So I can build school. Government will not give away my land in that case. So, but if there is a library or if there is a park on my land, accommodation reservation means that I implement the reservation on my land. I accommodate that reservation, but I also want to get benefits of market. I compensated for loss of my residential possibility on that part of land. So what government says, if this is a 4,000 square meter land for school, you can put only a school of 2,000 square meters on. And after that, on remaining, you get double the residential. As if remaining 2,000 is 4,000. So you get double FSI. So you build your residential on one side, you build school on one side. Or it's a hospital. You build a composite building, so one wing you access a hospital, and hand over to municipality. This is the you hand over freely construct and hand over to municipality, and ultimately you conduct. What treatment plants you have? I've seen in Navi Mumbai. What treatment plants are part of the private. So libraries are very common by such things, and even government offices are there. Our office, MMRK's Thana branch, is in a building which people that developer has handed over as part of accommodation to the municipality that given to them for payment. So this is very common. This is normally indicated under the provision called manner of implementation of legislation. Manner of implementation of provisions is a broad heading in the state of Maharashtra in the rule book, which says that municipality acquires land and builds. That's one manner of implementation. Secondly, municipality permits the landowner to construct the same amenity and hand over free of cost to municipality by getting compensation in the manner of building what is the adjoining land use. You can build that particular activity. Or suppose there is industrial land use, you can build industrial. So this is another manner of building. So there are some issues with this. Again, land extent, you wanted 4,000 square meters of land for school, now you get 2,000 square meters. You are providing another school. So there is a shortfall ultimately on account of land being curtailed for the facility. And second, on the remaining, you didn't expect residential. Now there is residential coming up, double size. So there is more population happening there. You didn't account for that population in that neighborhood plan. So now you may require actually two schools instead of one school. You are not only not getting residential, but you are also getting up to school. Then there may be conflict or incompatibility issues. You are building a school along with house in the same complex. So there may be some kind of compatibility issues. And maintenance, there are shared rights on land, building, and maintenance. Shared responsibility. So there are all things. So school doesn't pay. School has gone to municipality doesn't pay maintenance cost. Then there is residence fees also. So there are conflicts. Then not all observations are applied. If I am a landowner, I may do a health facility easily or a school easily, but not implement an open space legislation. So not all observations are attractive under the scheme of accommodation. So not all will get built under this. Then this absolutely does not address the open space issue because you can't use the F space. There is no. So open space will get curtailed. So there is great issue. Then there are things. There is a thing called amenity space. In Maharashtra, for example, they say that any part of land undertaken for development of any activity, residential, commercial, industrial, or any other public activity, if it is more than 2,000 square or let's say more than 4,000 square meters in some places, then a small portion of that land towards the road should be kept aside as a special activity, and that part of land should be handed over to you. You get additional expense, the expense of area loss to be used on the remaining land. Suppose there is 1 hectare of residential land, you may have to give 500 square meters. It will not be much higher than that. It's generally 250. So that part of land will be earmarked towards the road front and handed over to the front. So these kinds of parts that come into the position of municipalities are very useful sometimes because over and above suddenly population is more than what you expected. Reservations are implemented less than what they are shown on the master plan. Here you are getting ready-made free of cost land in your possession, so you can build at least those small amenities which are meant in the meant to be used in the neighborhood. However, their problem is that they are very tiny. If my land is only 2,000 square meters, I may allocate only 50 square meters. So that 50 square meters is good for nothing. So and then unless the building permitting officers are very imaginative, there are two land parcels that come for permission property. I will tell this guy to leave it in this corner and ask that guy to leave it in the next corner so that it becomes 50 plus 50. So and in a regular state, if the 50 by 50 is in a crooked state, then it is of use. So them being very small and them being in isolation, they can't even be amalgamated into a large parcel. So that is a issue with this. I think this is my last slide. So what can help? is this budgetary allocation for phase-wise plan implementation may be useful. This is under discussion. This may actually be agreed in Maharashtra. There is serious discussion. And government withdrawing from ensuring standards are met. Governments are saying, I will write regulation that private fellows should do this, private fellows should do that. Private fellows are permitted to do this, and lots of things are happening in a manner that, under some pretext or other, governments are taking backseat in providing quality, wise, and in adequate quantity the amenities required for, particularly for health, education, and open spaces. The governments are withdrawing from these functions. This is more and more being observed. And TDR is having enough problems already in the market, but now there is indexing of TDR also. Suppose in Mumbai, in this area, we surrender 10 square meters of area for road, and we use this in, let's say, Poranki. Then your 10 square meter certificate is not adequate because land value here is much higher, and in Poranki it is very cheap. So therefore, government is now indexing. It's very complex process, but they're indexing. If you surrender 10 square meters in this area, what is this address-wise this area called? Address? Huh? Krishnanagar. Okay, in Krishnanagar, if the 10 square meters is surrendered in Krishnanagar, indexing says that if you use that PDR in Poranki, it will be 20 into 4. 10 into 4. 4 times you get higher. If you use it in, for example, there's a one town or Governorpet, then you get only 5 square meters to use. So it's relative. If the land value there is higher than here, then if you surrender 10 square meters here, you get to use only 5 square meters there. So the indexing makes proportional changes to the value of the TDR certificate in terms of area, and they look at government's reference land value document and accordingly multiplies with that, and some kind of system is built into it. So indexing is happening now. The quantum, people are still reluctant to give TDR because it's a choice anyway. To make it more attractive, governments are now slowly saying not 1:1, even if the value is same. If I want to surrender here and use it in Krishnanagar only, instead of giving 1:1, if you surrender 10 square meters in Krishnanagar, we'll give you 20. And therefore, in Governorpet, it will be half of 20. If we go to Poranki, it is 20 into 4. So this kind of multiplication is also, it's already there. Yeah, guideline. Guideline values is for indexing, but the actual quantum is irrespective of any indexing. For every 1 square meter I surrender, I am entitled to, let's say, 4 times, basically. So my indexing is based on multiplication after 4 times. So that quantum is multiplying as well as the indexing is happening. And it is becoming a universal solution. Tomorrow we joke in Maharashtra that government, instead of paying salaries to government employees, may give TDR. So TDR is an extremely stretched instrument. So to see that as the ultimate towards the implementation of standards is a very dangerous game. Then for many aspects, like as I mentioned, for small clinic, crèche, small libraries in neighborhood libraries, etc., parking lot, all these are seen as trivial and they can happen in private sector more efficiently, and therefore these are removed summarily from, and many more like this are removed from the list of planning standards, eliminated, like talks, marriage, all such. And activities are grouped now. Earlier there used to be public purpose reservations for primary school, secondary school, then junior college, degree college, engineering college, etc. Now, cities are increasingly showing in the master plan provision for educational facilities. So, depending on the requirement in that area, the market can use it. Either municipality or market landowner can use it to the right type of educational facility. Maybe at the best, all schooling into one category, schools. Yes, schools, and second is professional college. That kind of categorization is happening. For health, it is called just health facility. That's it. So multiple activities within that broad head are being permitted instead of classifying them as municipal health clinic, polyclinic, nursing home, and then super specialty hospital, etc. Those are being removed. their group. Uh, and no need of standards is also an argument. There's very huge argument by some very senior professionals. Where is the need for standards? And where is the need for showing them on the master plan? If at all, there will be a need for saying planning standard as a guideline, but implementation can be completely left to the market, not necessarily indicated on the master plan. You only allocate broad zones in the master plan, residential, commercial, industry. That's and say permitted activities. We write in all of them, schools are permitted, playgrounds are permitted. So if the landowner feels like, they may provide. So, but you say that this sector, Krishnanagar must have 2 schools in the next 20 years, 2 new schools. So you leave it to the people to build. So, but then we always argue in such forums, okay, I am the landowner. I first apply for permission. I don't ask for school. You are the second, you are the third, you are the fourth. There are 20 parcels of land. All 19 have finished. They didn't build the school. So the argument is that the 20th fellow will have to build the school. So this is like totally, I mean, this is not equitable. This is not correct at all. So this is a very serious argument by Mumbai. So no need is one thing, but location is also important. The 20th fellow's location, or whoever, 8th fellow wanted to build school, but he is building it on 3 feet road, let's say, 6 feet road, and his plot is so narrow, and he and the neighbor together will build a school. All this is going to create a lot of compatibility issues later. This is just as an example I'm showing. I'm not going to discuss this in detail. This is one of the revised standards for Navi Mumbai, which I completed as a major exercise in 2004. And we got it approved by the board of directors and modified all the town plans within Navi Mumbai. Navi Mumbai has about 13 towns within Navi Mumbai. They are called nodes, Vashi, Belapur, etc. Each of these plans of these nodes were revised based on these standards. Wherever standards are not met, they are corrected. Commercial land, residential lands are converted to these amenity plots because all land belongs to government. Then wherever they are in excess, certain amenities are extraordinarily in excess, they are actually recorrected. If they are not developed, they are corrected. So this exercise, I'm showing to show the categories, educational standard, and each of these standards under category is indicated as essential and desirable. You can see here, heading called nodal under nodal, because for each node they are to be shown on the plan. If they are essential category, they must be with no compromise corrected on the plan if they are in short supply. And if they are desirable, not necessarily essential, then if the essentials are in short supply, you can take land from the desirable. Suppose engineering college is desirable, but school is a essential amenity. There's one school shortage in this area, but there is an area allocated for engineering college. You can take from engineering college, de-reserve it, and put it under school. And if that is also on short supply, then you move the desirable activity from Vashi to the neighboring town, because you can move another 5 kilometers to an engineering college and convert whatever is earmarked under desirable to the essential. So essential, no compromise. That is the principle. So educational standards, only schools and degree colleges are identified. Under professional colleges, professional colleges, I highlighted because these are seen as a particular standard which requires maximum standard and not minimum. For everything else, you need to have minimum, so many schools, so many degree colleges, minimum health facilities, and minimum whatever, library and open spaces. But here we specify particularly in Navi Mumbai a maximum standard. If already so many lands are being allocated or earmarked, all of them should be removed and converted to essential amenities. So these professional colleges, upper ceiling is kept because land is cheap. For professional colleges, there is a land subsidy, land price subsidy. So every politician and every developer will take land in the name of engineering college, and then they'll clandestinely run some engineering college, and after some years they will apply to government, get land estate. That was the modus operandi. Therefore, maximum ceiling was kept. The board was so reluctant because our board members are also having educational institutions. So, but finally we prevailed and got it approved. Then university and residential schools may not happen at nodal level, they may happen at city level. So that is Under health standard, up to nursing homes is the only category, small health facilities, then hospitals and super specialty. This super specialty hospital, I've got color here, that's also under these orange color, where an upper ceiling is kept. Because super specialty hospitals and professional colleges not only cater to the local people, they cater to people coming from other parts. Then there's one heading called places of worship. Under this place of worship, the population standard is given for every 1,000 population, whatever, how much per capita open space is given, and depending on the demand and the availability of that particular community in that area, land can be allocated for religious purposes. Then under cultural and linguistic institutions, community centers, libraries, auditorium, indoor, etc. Then under institutional, this was a new heading that we created. Here, New Bombay used to attract a lot of professional institutions, Institute of Engineers, Institution of Town Planners, Institution of Architects, Institution of Chartered Accountants, medical practitioners, all kinds of institutions were there. So these professional institutions, there are a lot of scientific institutions by government and private sector, and a lot of other institutions like welfare institutions, social institutions like orphanages, then senior citizens' homes, and there may be rehabilitation of the handicapped, maybe for HIV affected people. Lots of these social institutions were there. So there was judicial conscious decision was taken to promote social institutions and kind of make a balance between these other institutions and social institutions. And then there was a new category called working women's hostels introduced. These kind of things again happen as to you look at the how many people are working in the city of Navi Mumbai from the census and other surveys, and see how many are women workers out of that. And if you see that there's a large number of women workers in Navi Mumbai, then you see the age group profile of that. See how many people are between 16 or 18 to 25 age group, and make assumptions as to how many of them might be living with their own families within the city, and how many of them may be outsiders wanting to stay in separate accommodation, and how many of them may opt for PGs, various kind of accommodation. So make all assumptions subsequently. First take data, make assumptions, and end up getting a figure that this many women, working women, might require hostels in the city of Navi Mumbai, and how much do the hostel hold, what is the area norm per person, and then allocate, make a standard for it and allocate space. And while allocating space, while defining the standards for certain amenities like schools and working women's hostels, etc., location norms were also given. Working women's hostels should be close to transport terminals like bus stop and railway stations, suburban railway stations or metro stations. And they should be in an area that is more visible, where safety aspects are taken into consideration. So certain other things are also specified along with the area standard. There may be other hostels, then museums and film studios. Film studios are very common in and around Mumbai. So in Mumbai they can't afford, so suburban Mumbai has a lot of film studios by a lot of individuals working in film studios, and they are encouraged because a lot of film industry in rest of India also uses Mumbai and surrounding areas. So the total of all of these came to 2.45 square meters per person at the end of the day, all of this together. And compared, I forgot to put the open space standard here. Open space standard as specified in the national norm, as well as Maharashtra state's norm of 1979, is 16 square meters per person. Can you imagine, today you are all planning students, every person in the city having 16 square meters, that means 150, no, more than 160, maybe 170 or 80 square feet of space for open space. So, and nowhere in India that situation prevails on ground. And what prevails on ground may vary from 1 square meter per person to 5 square meters per person, most probably. If you remove like national parks and forests that exist and water bodies that exist in cities, remaining actively usable open spaces are far less. And then some calculations showed that actually 3 to 5 square meters is just about adequate for decent breathing in as public open spaces. So it's seen that in cities, cities must try to achieve 5, but if they can't achieve 5, they must at least achieve 3 square meters per person. This is recommended in Navi Mumbai as well as the 2001 standards of Maharashtra government, which are yet to be approved. That 3 square meters per person should be in terms of public open spaces and small public playgrounds, and the 1 square meter may come from other sports facilities like stadiums, etc. And one are city level parks, and 1 square meter may be taken as from the residential complexes. They will be small and large complexes. Each complex in Maharashtra also has a norm that 15% of their entire land should be kept aside as internal recreational open space within the complex. So if they are added, it might reach about 5 square meters per person. So that includes sports complexes, city level gardens, and 1 square meter from within residential complexes. So that's what was standard. This last map. Uh, what is that? Actually, I forgot to put in the slide for discussion regarding what is standards at regional level. Maybe at some other opportunity when I'm talking to students, I'll come back to that. At regional level, what is important as standard is not really schools or playgrounds, etc. It should see at regional level what the networks are important, and every area in the region that is habitable, which is urban, needing services of all kinds. That's the important thing about the standards in uh, metropolitan regions. It's all network based, like networks of roads, networks of water pipelines, networks of natural water sources. Then distribution of, let's say, if you look at Mumbai metropolitan region, we know that educational facilities are more centered in Mumbai and Navi Mumbai and nowhere else. A few in Thane. But there are 17 cities within the region. Everybody has to come to these areas. And then if you look at employment centers, it's again Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, and a city called Bhiwandi, which is far from Mumbai, which has sort of textile industry. Other cities don't have jobs. So when it comes to other employment centers, every city only has retail, malls and shops. Other employment they are not having. So and then health facilities, all super specialty hospitals are in certain cities, 1 or 2 cities. So this kind of inequity must be addressed by the region through regional plan or through government, introducing equitable provision of facilities. Otherwise, they'll put pressure on these transport networks. That's it. This is a map indicating the all reservations in Mumbai's master plan, which is more recent. It's made in 2014 and approved subsequently. So it's you can see the distribution of amenities. City is divided into everywhere. In every master plan, city is divided into sectors or neighborhoods or units, whatever. And for each unit level, they are indicated. And this is parts of Navi Mumbai. What we see on the right is the sub-city, which is one of the nodes in Navi Mumbai called Vashi. That's the largest and the first node in Navi Mumbai. As soon as you cross Mumbai, the first area that you encounter is Vashi, which is part of Navi Mumbai. And this is the land use map. I mean, incidentally, these are the maps I hand colored when I was working in SIDCO. These are probably from 1998. So you can see all the red colors are public amenities and greens are greens. So all the red distribution of the red on the left, it's a small layout of something like 35 hectares, which is one of the World Bank funded sites and services schemes. Bombay Urban Development Project was the program built in 1990s, early 90s. It's a thriving colony today, and these are all individual sites. Each of the blocks that you see has 27 plots within that. Very tiny plots of 18 square meters. So you can see the, however small, but some kind of small distribution of those amenities. Thank you so much. Why I wanted to speak about this subject in the school, I expressed to the faculty some time back that I wanted to speak about standards is through the thesis that I'm seeing on the group work, I saw that not enough discussion is happening even the groups while explaining their group work or thesis are talking about amenities, but the amount of significance given to the standard and standard being put on the plan, matching the plan with the standard, is slightly being undermined, and its importance is not perceived. I think once we become planners, we are forced to do it in any case. But apart from being forced to do it through planning process, you will also realize when you go into public service particularly, you realize how important these are for well-being of safe living of people. Therefore, it's very important aspect. So, and there are certain each state doesn't have same standard. There is a lot of variation. Gujarat particularly, I have been observing for a long time because in Maharashtra we interacted a lot with Gujarat planning and then Gujarat planners. Gujarat implements every plan through town planning mechanism, most of the plans. And in town planning mechanism, there is a possibility of realigning them. And subsequently, Gujarat started indicating on master plan itself, not reservations, but put town planning scheme 1, town planning scheme 2, town planning scheme 3. Borrowed all 3 town planning schemes, but it's not indicating public purposes within that on the master, except city level things. So while detailing of the town planning schemes, they don't provide too many space for community amenities like this, social amenities for public at large. So they used to, their planners used to get consultancies in Maharashtra, and they used to get talks looking at the amenities spaces that are there in the master plan. They no, can't work. You don't need real so many schools. Let private do it. They used to get horrified looking at the amount of land available for planning for other purposes. So, but I have been observing for the last 30 years as to how are Gujarat cities shaping into. You see from satellite image also today, if you go to cities in Gujarat, you see the density is gutta, dam gutta hai type. Everything is residential, commercial. So, and then you if you live in a residential area in Ahmedabad, your access to public open spaces is so little. So it makes a lot of difference. And the result of this will be seen maybe 30, 40, 50 years from now. And quality of life will be compromised somewhat. So Gujarat is a small example, but if we either don't plan or we don't implement what is there on the plan, I think the impact on quality of life will be very long term. So keeping that also in mind, it's very significant to note the importance of the plan. Thank you so much. Hope to speak to students on some other occasion again.
Thank you, ma'am, for those edifying words. It was indeed an eye-opener for us to understand the importance of developing standards for a city to promote people-friendly planning. And we will have the Q&A session at the end of both the presentations. Now, it is with utmost honor I present to you our next speaker of the day, Dr. Deepika Shetty, Coordinator for Online Courses and Learning Resources for MSAP MAHE. Dr. Deepika Shetty, who served as the director from 2018 to 2021 and is currently a professor at Manipal School of Architecture and Planning, is a distinguished academic and professional in the field of architecture and urban planning. She has a master's in urban design from CEPT Ahmedabad in 2001 and PhD from Manipal Academy of Higher Education in 2015. She has also been actively involved in consultancy work for various government projects, which includes the Comprehensive Development Plan of Udupi in 2005, the assessment of vulnerability of coastal areas in Udupi district in 2012, and the formulation of Vision 2020 for Udupi in 2015, followed by Vision to 2025 in 2017. Dr. Shetty has been a member of the panel of advisors for independent institutions for appraisal of detailed project reports under NRCP and NCPA in 2018. Her expertise extends to the development of Model Gram Panchayat Spatial Development Plan in 2020, and she has served as an advisor for the formulation and implementation guidelines for rural area development plans for the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Government of India. Currently, she is engaged in a grant project and serves as an advisor for Indian knowledge systems like AICTE, MOE, focusing on water management and development studies in Indian systems with a specific emphasis on coastal Karnataka. Her unique skill sets lies in developing habitat development models that integrate traditional knowledge systems and sustainable practices in the domains of architecture, urban and rural planning. Ma'am, I now invite you to address the gathering.
Uh, One sec, just give me a moment. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And I'm sure most of you are tired and there you have been, I think, quite exhausted. So being from teaching background and architect, I will try to make it very short and sweet and also have a lot of image to give some visual stimulation to keep you alert. So I will go very fast with my presentation and keep it to 1 or 2 lines per slide. And first and foremost, let me congratulate and appreciate the focus of what your institute is doing on policy and development, because this is very critical for our development as a country. And second part is I appreciate your patron, our director, Dr. Ramesh Srikonde, and your HOI, Dr. Adinarayanane, and your coordinators, Mr. Rajiv and Dr. Arpan, because this platform gives me an opportunity to share with you my experience on sustainable development. My journey is very different from a regular professional. Many people have tried to put me, whether I'm an architect, urban designer, planner, I don't fit into anything in the traditional sense because my qualifications are very different from my professional work, and my professional work is very different from my common knowledge. And this was first question asked by Professor Sridharan sir when we were put in this committee for RADPFI files, as well as when I go as subject expert for various research purposes. With this brief introduction, I'll share my presentation now. Let me know if there's any issue in understanding or seeing, because I won't know what you are seeing in your screen. So are you able to see my screen clearly? Are you able to see my screen? Please, someone respond.
Yes, ma'am.
And is my audio very clear? Is this okay? My pitch or volume?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So I will start my presentation with this idea that what are we trying to do first? This is, I'll tell you like a story or an experience, because the policy itself you can refer on the online, and there are enough reports telling you about do's and don'ts. But what is the aim, ambition, thought behind these policies, and what is the impact of these policies is what I would like to share. And the importance of doing these policies for the development of the land. So initially, this concept of spatial planning in rural areas was absolutely new. And it was initiated by Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Government of India during July-December 2020. They invited around 13 institutes to take up the job of model Gram Panchayat Development Special Plan, and they invited us to take up 2 Gram Panchayats and funded the same all over India. We at Manipal represented the coastal states of Kerala, Karnataka, and Goa. And we chose 2 extreme situation, which is in the West Coast, because East Coast, there was Tamil Nadu and there were other institutes handling it. So we thought we should take up the challenges of West Coast throughout. And we chose 1 coastal village right on the Arabian Sea, and 1 in the Western Ghats, which is again very ecologically sensitive and the terrain is very challenging, because these 2 would give the unique situation that this land occurs. So Panchayati Raj had this base intention of how the rural area is not addressed in terms of land and land use development, which is a state subject, and how that is harming our resource management and environment. So with this in mind, they had said that can we develop a scientific and authentic system to create the development structure, and with a vision for next 20-30 years. The good thing is they did not put any restriction of present policy or legal system, nor was the benchmarking as the urban development. So this was an opportunity, I would say, for all institutes to put their best foot forward in what is an ideal development. And they gave us very good support system from ISRO, National Information Center, NRSC, in terms of getting the data as accurately and as fast as possible. So I think this was a very good exercise and the vision was very clear. I wouldn't go into details because this is all in the website of Panchayati Raj. So let me get into the Gram Panchayat that we did first, because this was the first exercise that we did before we went into developing the guidelines, which included other colleges. And we took a stand in Manipal that what is sustainable and what is development for village would be very different from what we put as benchmarking in normal urban development or abroad, what we call as development. So we are not looking at bigger, denser, higher growth, but we are looking at a balanced which can sustain over a long period of time and also be more, what you call it, environment friendly. So we put these 4 pillars of sustainability as the benchmark. Like, how did we say that this is good or this is bad and this is appropriate and this is inappropriate? Is understanding the context in 4 layers. That is the natural setting, what cannot be replaced and which has been given as a for all areas. Like, we don't start with 0, we start with the natural setting. And then we have a history of evolution of existing paradigm of a place, where I include the soft cultural landscape with historic background as well as the physical heritage. And this heritage is something that we have to respect as an identity of a place. The third part is obviously the more practical and essential legal system, demographic system, political system, socio-economic system prevalent in the time that we are designing, because that is a strong given which will influence your development. And finally, the current situation in terms of future aspiration, future requirements, lifestyle requirements, which has to be addressed with any development. So these layers, if they are not addressed, any one missing, we would do injustice in terms of what we consider as sustainable development. And of course, every decision, we don't assume that we know everything. It's very participatory with authorities, the local stakeholders, all to be included along with us when we make the decisions. So this was a 3 to 4 months exercise with multiple meetings at different levels. But however, benchmarking is not about saying that does it satisfy the legal framework, does it satisfy the people only. I would say the most important thing we need to ask is, what is development? What is it replacing from what exists? What should be the future form, and what would be the impact of this form? How are we going to manage waste, energy, services, and what is its environment cost? Where are the raw material coming for the products, food, water, energy? So we have to set benchmarks for lifestyle, for income, for education, for health, for welfare, and for habitat. And hence, whenever we put our vision and mission of any development, we should understand the aspirations, societal values, the hierarchy that exists, the respect to every profession, the respect for constitutional rights, and the sense of belonging, the soft cultural part, which also needs to be respected. So we start with an overall regional understanding. Though the job given was of individual Gram Panchayat, we thought that we should understand the region, its characteristics, its situation, and with that, understand that what would be the futuristic development for a system rather than an individual model Gram Panchayat. So when we set boundaries of development due to constraints of the legalities, it doesn't mean that our vision should be restricted by that boundary. We should have a larger picture before we intervene at an individual level and see how it adds up. Especially this is very relevant to villages, because as far as the economy, area, and the manpower, individually the village is very small and it addresses very limited resources. But when we look at it as a network, it can be at a larger scale, and the benchmarks can be bigger than an individual city. So we have to always look at the larger picture as a network of facilities rather than look at the development in a very individualistic manner. So we looked at Shankarnarayana's context, which is in the middle level of the Western Ghats. It's not in the highly contoured area, nor is it at the base foothills of the Western Ghats. It's somewhere in the middle with the very medium level density. I think when we compare it to urban areas, it looks very less, and the growth rate is nominal. The population growth is also very nominal. So normally when we benchmark it with urban areas, we feel there is nothing much to plan or there is nothing critical. But I disagree here, because any development is not about density, number, size. Development is about appropriateness and future direction. So with that definition, what we need to do is see that our deterioration is not there, and whatever changes happen is in the right direction. And what are the key factors that defines that particular context? So let me give you a highlight that it has good amount of rainfall, good fertility. It is one of the 7 holy places of Parashurama Kshetra. It has exceptionally high level of biological diversity. It is a home for 325 globally threatened species. And of course, it is the hotspot of biological diversity. Now, these are all the issues which are relevant not only at the state level or at the district level, but at international level. It's a biodiversity hotspot acknowledged internationally. So that is the level of importance for some of the villages, I would say many of the villages. And of course, we have to respect the terrain, we have to respect the land use. We are not here to say more things should be converted, more land use changes should be recommended. What we need to see is what should be conserved, how do we manage the resources for the future. And remember, the rural areas are providing resources not just for themselves, but for all the industries. It is the raw material for all the urban areas. And every unit square meter of urban area depends 10 times more square meters of rural area to support it. Support it in terms of raw material, support it in terms of managing the waste. So we need to understand what is the ideal way of guiding this management of resources. Then we get into understanding the people, their profession, their standards. And see, we always say there is migration problem, there is a heavy load of people coming into urban areas, and we're not able to cope up with the housing demand. But what I would say is, can we afford the 90% of, say, population of India being in urban areas? Would it be sustainable? And the answer will be absolutely no. We need people to be in agriculture. We need raw material. We need people to provide for food, provide for basic manufacturing, provide for various skills, which will support the urban areas. So it is surely not the ambition of the country to convert 90% of the population to urban. The ambition of the country would ideally be that whether it's urban or rural, they should have good lifestyle opportunity and prevent people from migrating from rural to urban. So we tried to see why would a person migrate from rural to urban and what we could do to improve their quality of life so that they don't have to look at the urban areas to satisfy their ambitions, aspirations, or their income and education. Also, when we look at the land, we have to understand that this is the land that is not only supporting the village itself, but it is the land which is supporting the urban areas and the future of the country, and give the water security, the food security, every raw material that is required for various products and lifestyle comes from the rural area, the forest area. And of course, today when we look at disaster, it is the mismanagement of land over a regional scale that is not only affecting the rural area, but also the urban area. So when we look at floods, when we look at earthquake, the boundaries of rural-urban don't matter. We have to look at the region holistically. So first thing we did is, can we look at the vulnerability index, and why is it vulnerable, and what are the critical areas that has to be addressed when we define development? And how do we make it resilient? This is the flip side of the coin, that if there is vulnerability, how do we make it resilient? And again, resilient not just for, say, land development, but resilient in terms of social, economic, institutional, environmental, and every other holistic development or integrated development, as we call it. So we look at lifestyle requirement, we look at the distances traveled and the hurdles that people come across for their requirements, be it monthly, daily, or a yearly requirement, or even in a lifespan, like for education, for job opportunities. What is the situation of the people? And what policies would, help them achieve better things? What would support the goals of the people? We tried to do one basic background search. We looked at the conflict situations and concerns that exist in the present system, both as land and as the physical. Here, I would like to say that the physical marking of conflict, of population, of the profile of the people, everything spatially located, the forest land, the water bodies, the problems of professional practices, everything was done spatially. And this helped us in creating a complex network of issues and possible solutions, which was not standardized. It was not the same for all the land. And even like the problems are not standardized, similarly, the solutions are not standardized. And this spatial location is the key difference between what was happening before to what we proposed as model development. So the vision is sustainable village. Remember, it is not bigger. It is not about meeting it urban standards, but rather we are looking at how to conserve the natural assets, how to encourage quality of life, community development, how to improve livelihood opportunities, how to conserve both natural and cultural heritage, how to improve the infrastructure, which is futuristic and would almost match the national international standards, and how to keep the food security and resource security for not only the village but also the surrounding areas. So I will end with this overall master plan profile. The details are available in the website. That we looked at agriculture reform, we looked at conservation of water and good management of water bodies. We located it with GPS coordinates, size, shape, location, photographs, the surrounding land use. We gave very specific comment that we don't want to increase the residential and the roadways, rather improve the quality only, because the density was enough and the area was enough to support future growth as it is without increasing the percentage land change in land use. We gave importance to heritage value of the place as both natural as well as built heritage and cultural heritage, which is a softer part. And community spaces. Now, a lot of quality of life, support system, reducing vulnerability in situations of disaster or emergency. The support system came from community spaces. So we looked at it as a key in building resilience. And of course, improving the economic opportunities, empowering women, creating smart infrastructure, because that allows it to have villages to have high quality access to business, education, governance facilities, information within their reach, at their doorstep. If not in every house, at least at the panchayat or within 5-kilometer radius, so that they do not need always to go to the cities to access these facilities. And of course, because this is filled with waterways, bridges and access to various areas became critical in making that network of facilities. Now, this area also boasted a lot of natural resources or forest resources as well as cultural resources. So we thought we should have guidelines even for heritage management and what potential it has. Now, like I said, we contrasted it with the coastal village, which was having its totally different challenges of course, flooding, a very flat terrain, almost having a constant threat of erosion, or it had a risk assessment of medium and high. The land was absolutely used. So there was no empty land. Like Shankarnarayana had very low density. This is opposite of that. There was no space for any new development. The infrastructure was of very low quality. And the physical landscape looked at natural disaster at a very high risk situation. There was very less of even maintaining things like drinking water, because saltwater intrusion was there. So right from drinking water to production of food became a challenge in this area, and it was deteriorating every year. So the challenges here was flooding, maintenance of water resource, high risk of natural disasters, and of course, lack of land for basic infrastructure, even like road. So, and lot of inaccessibility to basic education, like anyone wanted to go beyond 11th and 12th had to travel long distances for basic education and healthcare. So these were the challenges that we faced in this town, which is very different from Shankaranayana. Hardly 30% issues were common between Shankaranayana and Upunda. Shankaranayana being on the hilly terrain of Western Ghats and Upunda being the coastal village on the seashore. So what I'm trying to tell you is, every time we go from one village to another, the understanding, the issues, the complexity changes drastically. And this is the reason why we cannot standardize or benchmark it in a very uniform way. I won't get into details, but what I would like here to highlight here is, again, the vulnerability index became very critical here to make decisions, and the resilience mapping was done in the similar manner as the previous case. And we saw a big gap in the potential of income that was very singular in terms of economy, which was very unhealthy, and it was very seasonal. So some time of the year they had very good income, and some time of the year they would have literally zero income. And also it was income was very much dependent on the male member of the family. So women and children were made more vulnerable because opportunity to earn for them was very less. Fishing being the predominant activity, and going to the seas for days together was not possible for women and small children. So this made the economy very lopsided, and even women empowerment was very low. And of course, the quality of infrastructure, that is physical houses, in Shankaranayana was quite good. The roads were good, the houses were of good quality, whereas here it was exact opposite. There was no road. The quality of housing did not meet the benchmarks of a good, safe housing, and a lot of improvement was required in terms of water, services, road, basic services, I would put it. And of course, it was amongst the 17 most important biodiversity hotspot listed by UNESCO. But the plus point was it has a very good community bonding, and the community spaces were very well distributed. So this, we used it as a positive point when doing the master plan. And the earning during fishing was very good. But when it's not there, we thought, why not look at alternative income? So concerns and needs in terms of solid waste, drinking water, income opportunity, internet connectivity, natural disaster vulnerability, and the quality of housing and infrastructure. So vision here was to develop a sustainable coastal development with livelihood security from community and socio-economic development through capacity building, while preserving and managing the resources responsibly. Again, remember, the target was not to increase the density, not to increase the height of the building or the percentage of land use. Here it was to protect the natural resources, improve the physical conditions and the safety of people for disaster management, and of course improve the income quality and the best practices in terms of a coastal village. So all this put together, we put some guidelines for coastal protection, road infrastructure, water management, neighborhood development, typologies recommended for cyclonic winds, because there's a lot of cyclonic winds every year, and flooding every year, and how it could be managed well. You can go through the details in the website. This report is available. I won't get into details, but what I wanted to highlight here is how the 4 pillars of sustainability has been addressed: natural, heritage, present, socio-economic, and working with the people how they are, rather than putting our standards from outside, and their aspirations also demarcated as per their aspirations for themselves and for the future. So this was the benchmarking for various support systems, and we use the community spaces. Like I said, extra separate space we would not get. So what exists as community spaces, we use that itself to improve the infrastructure and access to maybe better internet facilities. We said, why not have a good a network of internet facility at community spaces to warn the villagers during natural disasters, to educate the people for best practices of waste or water management, how to use better practices at community level waste management rather than individual housing level waste management, and so on. So though Shankar Narayana had a very scattered thing, we encouraged individual or localized waste management. Here we encouraged community-based water and waste management. So what I want to again highlight here is every village has its own challenges, situation, and hence we cannot put standardized systems in place. Rather, we need to look at it in a local way. Now, I will not get into all these details. I'll get directly into the outcome of this exercise done by the government was to improve the RAD PFI guidelines, and they selected 4 of us. The team was led by Dr. N. Sridharan sir, and he had a huge homework done already with his group of faculty, where they had looked at all the existing legal systems that were present for rural development. So a lot of background work and knowledge and experience he had over of this rural development. I was the odd one out who was an urban designer, not a planner, and who came into picture out of the blue after this exercise. And Dr. V. Devdas from IIT Roorkee and Professor Amit Goenka from CEP, though they were there in the initial discussions and they were very experienced, they could not participate because both of them were affected by COVID. So finally, I think I would give credit, 60% to 70% of this guidelines was the brainchild and effort of Sridharan sir and his team of faculty. And I might have contributed 10 to 20%. And I've already shared this comment with your coordinator that if the overall vision and appreciation of RAD PFI holistically has to be done, Dr. N. Sridharan is the right person to talk. I will highlight the chapters which I worked on and how my experience of Model Gram Panchayat gave direction to RAD PFI guidelines. So if we look at why the guidelines was made, it was to make a methodological framework for the Gram Panchayat development and especially the different challenges faced by the villages due to conversion into urban areas or located next to highways and state highways, and being in vulnerable areas, being in disaster-prone areas, having lack of infrastructure in remote areas, lack of access to infrastructure, and so on. So we said, can we look at a spatial planning for rural areas, which is first of its kind, and how we can address these issues with improved standards and benchmarking, which is not necessarily equal to what the urban areas are doing, because that wouldn't work for rural areas. So the benchmarking has to be done differently. This was agreed upon by all of us, and also the levels in which it has to take place. Also, we highlighted that we have to look at regional block level or district level, because otherwise it won't make sense. Individually, we cannot put all the infrastructure in one village, but as a network, we can bring it to a level of urban development in terms of infrastructure. So we needed levels of planning rather than just look at an individual village. And of course, we emphasize the involvement of people as participatory planning, self-governance, the 73rd Amendment of self-governance, governance and independence, and also the financial security that these development would need. And of course, the important aspect where this was possible, or the scale of implementation we thought is possible due to technological advancement, where GIS and the satellite data that was available to us from government repository through NIC, through NRSC, and how that could improve the accuracy and the mapping possibility at a large scale. Because since rural areas never done before, this is a big ambition that we had, that every square meter of the rural area would be mapped, would be digitized, would be having all the information, be it ownership to social conditions, economic conditions, resources, natural resources, man-made resources, documented. And this ambition could be satisfied only with this technological support system. Otherwise, it was kind of not possible in the previous years. Now, another important thing of RADPFI, which you should appreciate, is the classification. Again, like I said, if we standardize the development targets or benchmarking, we would destroy the villages and harm it more than help it when we do the development plan. So first thing we decided is we should have categorization based of the guidelines itself on different types of villages. So there were 10 types that were identified based on location. We said hilly areas need special consideration. Villages having strong river basin areas needed special consideration, including the coastal areas, and those prone to disasters, because already hilly areas and coastal areas were prone to disasters, but also there could be special zones which would be prone to disasters, which need different guidelines of development than a regular village. And agroclimatic zone, because like I said, food security lies in the rural areas. So we need to have different guidelines for different agroclimatic zones. And of course, where existing infrastructure of expressways, highways, the pressure of development is more, conversion of lands is more. So challenges will be different from other locations. So we thought we should classify this separately. Then the, what you call it, the special areas or demarcated areas for tribal or special cultural people. I would say this would be for the soft heritage that we have, needs a special consideration and how it could be conserved. And of course, where physical access prevents access to infrastructure, those areas need special considerations. Then, of course, the size of the town. This is normal even in urban areas, how the population size as well as the physical size would influence the standards differently that we already have in the urban areas. And those facing the challenges of transformation from rural to urban needs to be addressed specifically. So what I would like to highlight here again is the chapter 5, where we tried to introduce all the standards relevant to rural areas. It was not like copy-paste of urban areas. We tried to distinguish what would be the standards for rural areas as compared to urban areas. But remember, no physical standards was there ever before. So this was important benchmarking of quality of infrastructure that needs to be in rural areas that we set about making. We used the existing guidelines, but we said that we filter it as per the relevance to urban areas. So it was not totally new that way, but I think the filtration process was very important. And like I told you, the guidelines was not standardized. So all the categories of village had different benchmarks of residential area, mixed use, and industrial area. So the percentage land use, be it density targets, everything changed as per the categories. So this is very important, the categorization of villages and hence the benchmarking being different. And another important inclusion was the environmental areas gave special, I think, water bodies having special land use is not there in urban areas CDP, but here we said water harvesting areas, public places, water bodies, open spaces differently will be documented and conserved. And I think this is a very good thing, and linking it to SDGs. Now, this again is very forward looking. I think even the urban areas should mimic this, because this ensures good environmental health and urban, what we call it, environmental services to the habitat. And this should be there in every settlement for the health and well-being of the place. And of course, we had the social, economic, and physical infrastructure standards, which I think all existing urban development also has. Now, again, if you look at the solid waste management, like I said, it's different from urban areas because you have high density, concentrated development. Here, we needed to look at what could be localized, what could be at community level, rather than at a full centralized system. So here we totally neglected central system and recommended localized systems for most of this waste management. Only recyclable waste we recommended centralized system. Now we looked at the issues faced for habitat in terms of ecosystem, biodiversity, topography, disaster management, cultural and heritage requirements, occupational economic requirements, water management requirements. Sometimes land records was not documented well physically, that they would have in text, but not as a physical diagram, which led to a lot of, I would say, mismanagement and corruption. And even lack of access to maybe the government funding due to lack of records and documentation. So even the digital mapping allowed a fair and specific targeted real-time development rather than saying everything in text or words, because a lot of mismanagement was happening due to lack of spatial documentation of resources as well as ownership. And we looked at the financial support that was required for maybe business or economic development, and said that this access could be given through a digital system, at least in the panchayat, which had high internet facility. And this would allow a lot of opportunities both for economic and governance issues of the village and access to education. So then the other important chapter which I was involved was about SDGs and disaster management. And this was my favorite chapter, I would say, because we looked with special considerations to how we can bring the sustainable development goals into the rural areas, and how we would put it step by step in terms of local context, natural resource management, and of course, the waste and water management being the highlight, and finally giving best practices, be it agriculture, economy, professions dependent on the environment, like fishes or forest produce or agriculture. So everything was interlinked: the economy, the natural resources, the vulnerability, and location-based challenges of land and disaster management. So what we are looking at is four aspects of bringing sustainable development. One is the institutional support, the environment goals, and the socio-cultural capital that exists in the place. Now, vulnerability assessment was the first step in putting the critical issues of every place. So we gave the step-by-step issues that need to be addressed in vulnerability, and the flip side of disaster management which would automatically follow from the vulnerability assessment. So this, what you call it, index was my important, what I would put it as listing in the whole policy, because I felt that at least if this much was done for every village with spatial location, spatial mapping, we would be preventing lot of problems or mismanagements of natural resources, and we would have very good disaster management and very good water management also. So this was a checklist which I said has to be followed by every village and map it physically. And based on that mapping would be the resilience solution, or how to build resilience for environment, social, and economic aspect. So this benchmarking was what was important. Now, why I want you to look at this whole journey of RAD-PFI files is not for learning something new, but I'm saying that why should we look at villages as something which is lower than urban areas, but can we look at it as the best way to live with a different kind of standards from urban areas? And the quality of life is never compromised as lower or lesser than an urban area. Rather, we are saying best quality of life should be provided in the rural areas. So with this in mind, I think I would like to end my presentation. And I think I leave rest of the things in question answer session. Hello, is that fine? Are you all?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for this insightful knowledge about the quality of life and its relationship between migration, which deals with which is a core problem in all of the issues. And I would like to say that a lot of ideations which was presented was correlating with the studio which we are working on, and we would further like to explore it. And thank you so much once again, ma'am. So now the floor is open to the Q&A session. I would like to welcome all the questions.
I hope I didn't put anyone to sleep, and those tired were able to hear and stay alert.
No, ma'am, as I already mentioned, the ideas was very new because we are exploring all these ideas very as of now in regional planning. So I felt it is new, and our juniors would have enjoyed it more than us.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. This is Shravya from BPAM here, and I'd like to ask my question to Uma ma'am today. Ma'am, when we were discussing about inadequacies of infrastructure, you also mentioned that you were working on your PhD topic on identifying areas with low or no infrastructure facilities. And you've also briefed us about the social characteristics that you have inferred, that there was a depreciation in the physical and mental health of the people. So I wanted to know if there are any more spatial characteristics that you would infer, if how and where are these areas with low infrastructure facilities spatially distributed within a settlement? Like, were these in the areas of new urban sprawl, or were these in the core city areas? Exactly that. Yeah, first clarification. I don't have a PhD. So that was part of my PG diploma thesis. So the sites without services schemes
were extensively land-based. Therefore, by logic, they were in the suburban areas. Yeah. And one or two are very famous examples. For example, this place called Khuda Ki Basti in Hyderabad of Pakistan is a very famous. You will find a lot of literature on it. But most of the literature is during the formation of the schemes and glorifying the features of it. Similarly, when you see the participatory development scheme in Gurgaon near Delhi, you will see how private sector was licensed by the Haryana Urban Development Authority to implement the scheme and how low-income groups were provided with certain facilities within that. You will see a lot of glorification of the features of the scheme. But you will still see some reviews of these schemes. There was one in Bogota, Colombia, one in Brasilia of Brazil, and Dodoma of the new capital of Tanzania. So you will see all these examples. So what happened there was a layout was prepared. For example, Khuda Ki Basti, it's the most famous one. A layout was prepared and the people were asked to come and squat on it for 7 days. Then they squatted, they were observed. Then they were asked to stay there, they were given allotment. Then they were asked to stay there for 3 months, live there for 3 months, build without any standards, without any permissions, construct whatever you feel like, shacks. So they constructed. And the layout had roads, and but nothing was built. It's just land with paint marks, earmarked. And people were asked to come, and if they were continuously living there for 3 months, they were given firm allotment letters, and they were asked to thereafter give every month a certain amount of money, deposit with the government. And when the whole community gives and the money is sufficient for part funding some infrastructure, they were asked to vote which infrastructure piece they would like to have. The road, water supply, or a school, or a community hall, whatever. Then whatever money the community's kitty is showing, the government would equal it, and then municipality will provide that infrastructure. But suppose the first in such instance took 10 years or 5 years, whatever, for them to accumulate enough money to do this. In the meanwhile, in those 5 or 10 years, whatever was earmarked for any public community did not exist by then. If there was to be a 20-meter road in front of my house, and there is an opposite house also, all of us in that row divided that equally, and we built it. So whatever was meant for open space was also occupied, because it's only a paint mark. There was nothing, not even an approach road to it. Water was not there. Only public stand posts were there. And thereafter, when there is enough money, they were to take individual pipelines. But the road vanished. The area earmarked for road vanished. And if it existed in parts and in crooked manner. So the possibility of even running pipelines within that was not easy. So things became so difficult. This was the story of Khuda Ki Basti. What happened in Brasilia was that the youth, that community had a lot of youth. And the youth did not know what to do in the evenings because this location was far away. They didn't have money to take transportation, go somewhere and entertain themselves. So there was nothing to entertain on within the community. So they started indulging in crime, petty discussions, antisocial activities. So later on, research linked a lot of these things to the approach of sites without services. So you can also search for some documentation on each of these cases. Bogota also had a lot of mugging issues. So it's in a way, as spatial planners, we contributed. We are supposed to contribute through planning to the well-being of the people, better lifestyles and well-being. But in fact, ulta happened. So infrastructure, both physical and social, has a great contribution. It makes great contribution to the well-being of the people in both physical and mental sense. So that these are the examples. I was very thrilled with this idea. I glorified in my thesis at that time. Then subsequently I did some more research when I returned. Then I understood, no, this is because all the literature at that time that I studied was glorification literature. The glorification of writing happens when the scheme is under implementation. We are awed by it. So, but subsequently, a lot of people do research, but they may not write. Like I did some research, but I did not write about it. So it's interesting that one should do a bit more exploration to find out. I must find out what is this Vijayawada thing. You also find out. We should do some project on it. Some school project, academic project.
Thank you, ma'am. My question is to Deepika, ma'am. So, ma'am, thank you for your session. It's been quite interesting because we were doing something very similar in our studio exercise. So it was quite insightful. So my question is, in your presentation, you were explaining about a coastal village where you were saying you were attempting to for an economic diversification, like the primary occupation was fishing. So it was seasonal and it didn't give income at a particular time of the year. So as part of your exercise, you said you were aiming at economic diversification. So I'm interested to know what are the strategies that you took to diversify the economy in that village? Because similar thing we are also attempting in our studio. So it would be very grateful if you shed some light on that.
Okay, since you wanted about economy, which is very important because, like we say, when we say development, it's not, like I said, important that everything becomes bigger or the change of land use. Many a times we say increase the area of residential or industrial and commercial. We are improving development. But in rural areas, at least, I would say that should not be the case. So what we looked at is we have in Shankar Narayan it was agriculture, and in Upunda it was predominantly fishing. So it was very what you call uniculture economy and seasonal in nature, and made the people vulnerable to natural disasters and these climate change very high. And this was very unhealthy because little change in rainy season or flooding or anything would affect their yearly income. So what I felt was, instead of increasing the area, we should give multiple ways of earning as a strategy, rather than saying that they have to increase the agriculture area or area of industrial development and so on, because that would increase the pressure on natural resources also. And especially in Upunda's case, there was no land available for anything of that kind. We could not put new industries. We could not put new development. It should be within the existing development and skill sets. So in case of agriculture, we try to bring best practices of multi-crop, which would allow that the number of diseases which would affect a single crop would not affect the income overall. Also, the number of cycles of crop would change as per the multi-crop. So they would have more consistent income over the year rather than, singular or maybe twice a year income. So if you say you combine legumes, vegetables, rice, and multiple crops of horticulture and agriculture, because it was an hilly area, we recommended a mix of horticulture also. The roots would stabilize the slope. So we don't want large scale, rice paddy cultivation. We want more of combination of horticulture. And we said multi-crop would give a more stable economy than a singular. And normally, if you just sell the raw material, you're getting less income per square meter. But what if we do processing of that material and then send it? The income of the farmers would increase. So something at local level, what processing can be done, or at a community level, at community spaces, what processing can be done. We identified the produce and the processing. Also introduce some new agriculture produce which should give immediate high income, like mushroom or forest medicinal herbs, which is very unique to the place. It is not grown everywhere, which would give a unique selling point to the place. And we said that why not empower with the skill sets to build those high income produce rather than just, the regular things that they know. So this was in Shankarnarna. Whereas in fisheries, what we said was there was this oyster farming and cage fishing and pickling, because the cuisine in Udupi, especially the seafood cuisine, is very popular. We said, why not use it to improve the fishing cannot be done throughout the year, and you sometimes have excess produce, which is very a loss if you don't get the rates. So instead of reducing your income when you have excess produce and losing income when you can't go fishing, we said we go for that excess produce for pickling or for dry fish, and use the packaging for improved income, because then you can sell it online with the masalas and unique preparations of this coast with a unique selling point again, and use those local system, traditional systems, which is sought after. And like I said, we are not looking at new industries. We are saying localized, community-based, maybe home industries or community-based industries. Also, we improved the information system and the networking system through physical as well as internet facilities at community level, not at individual house level. So if the network is weak at house level, it's very difficult to put that kind of infrastructure in rural areas. But can we select 5 points where the internet facility would be good? Where the warning system could be placed, and where people within 1 or 2 kilometers can come together. So during emergency, that would be the shelter, the warning system. During regular times, it would be the economic, say e-commerce facility, or access to education for different e-courses. So the same center could play multiple roles in different situations and give them access for additional income during off season, when the fishing, normal fishing is not there. See, normal fishing, they earn 15 to 20,000 per day, which is very high income. But that is not there for women, are differently abled. They have to be physically very fit, or children also. So a family which has only one person, and suppose due to accident or due to some disaster they lose that person, they have become absolutely vulnerable. So what we said is, can we give alternate income in terms of cage fishing, which women can do, oyster things which women can do, and it is less risk because it is within your daily routine, so you don't have to stay away from home for long duration of time. An educated person can become a business management or coding and e-courses, and go into professions which are presently not available to earn in the online mode. So we felt the access to internet would be key for women and empowerment to do professions which are normally not available in rural areas. For the women, the travel for long distance for different types of education facility or a workplace was becoming a challenge due to safety concerns or infrastructure, which cannot be changed overnight. So again, we thought that local produce, pickling, e-commerce would give a lot of women empowerment and income resource for the vulnerable population. So now when you see the strategy, I hope that answers your question about economic empowerment and multiple ways to earn, how within the scope, like it's within the reach. It's like not changing the resources or expecting high level of infrastructure input, which we normally put in urban areas like SEZs or large scale industry or a special land and high investment. This cannot be the strategy in rural areas. So the strategy here was very local oriented with minimum investment, how multiple sources of economy could be developed. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. So I have this question. I'm not sure whether this question is serious or no. I always find standards to be very overwhelming. I don't feel like practicing it. If there's one way through which I can practice standards, what is that, ma'am? Because I feel standards come in my way and stop my creativity at times. So this is a question for both of you. Uh, from your experience, you can let me know any ideas to practice standards.
Should I go first, or my ma'am wants to go?
Okay. It comes in your way of what? What is your way? Yeah, see, you hear a lot of similar discussion when we work in slums. When we work for improvement of a particular slum, you try to organize things and give minimum plots to everyone, let's say, and then allocate some area for roads and open spaces and others. And say, but why do you require 8-meter road in front of my house? Make it 3 meters and give me more plot. And then they would also say this playground is not necessary. Anyway, we are in slum today, we are used to going to some other playground. We'll continue to do so. So this kind of thing happens. So what is it that they are objecting to? Because their plot will become bigger if these are not there. And therefore they will profit more. So it's coming in the way of that individual gain. So when you as a planning student say that it comes in your way, a standard. So in your way of what? Towards what? Is your way providing more residential, more commercial?
No, ma'am. At times I have the feeling that I'm oriented towards economic development. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I don't wanted to do that. I wanted to. At times I wanted to focus on vulnerable groups, focus on their livelihoods and all. But I'm forced to focus on certain way. That's what I meant.
In fact, the more disadvantaged you are in the society, the more standards come for your protection. This again I learned through research. I was doing some research in 2000 to 2004 on regulatory guidelines for affordable shelter. How are the regulations reacting with affordable shelter? So I went with the preconceived idea that regulations are an impediment. Most of us, other people think that it's an impediment. But after doing the study for a year, it dawned upon me that what people are trying to tell me is that actually it is the regulatory system which is coming to their protection. If the regulatory system did not exist, they would be completely throttled by the market. It's only the regulatory system which includes standards that if you don't say that 1,000 people require so much light and ventilation, or so many open spaces, so many schools, nobody will provide for them. So therefore, vulnerable areas and vulnerable population, especially when you say vulnerable population, they are more vulnerable because we are not addressing their issues. We are not treating them equally. So I think it's the standards which do not distinguish between your economic or social status. All people are 1,000 heads or per capita. So therefore, I think standards are a way of reducing the vulnerability on the long run. So you may read a little bit more literature about equity and how the planning systems work towards equity. Probably if you read a bit more literature, it will be more clear. But one way of reducing vulnerabilities is to do the planning in the right manner.
I would just like to add to ma'am's position also, like she said. But what I want you to understand is creativity is not in creating different forms. It is to see complexity of a problem, and the solution can come only from creativity. Because whenever I put all the conflict situations, they were very challenging. Only when I located it spatially and looked at the legal support system, which ma'am very much pointed, because you are living in a democratic society. You can't force dictatorially for people to give up their preferences or give their land for community development. It cannot be dictatorial. We need justification. We need legal supports. We need, the standards to actually justify our requirement of an ideal development. So what I would say is, have a dream of a nice habitat with everything going well, and seeing a larger picture of all parts of society, which without any discrimination. But once you have the dream, to really implement it, you need the legal support system, you need the standards to justify it and implement it. Without that, people will just say it's your wish, you keep dreaming, it'll never happen on the ground. So when we want to make dreams a reality, you need the the laws. So look at it that way, that to realize your dreams, you need the legal systems. Otherwise, no one's going to listen to you, no matter how beautiful picture you paint. Okay, and use your creativity to address the complexity of a solution, like the previous case in economy. I think we had to come up with very new solutions of economic development, benchmark new ways to address land use. These are also creative exercises. It's not just about form making or design as per picture, pretty pictures or sceneries of development. It's also about looking at life and society, culture, everything as a whole. So we're giving integrated solutions. So look at creativity that way, not as a physical picture or a painting of a map, that kind of thing. So I think the ma'am has given you the practical requirement, and I will just put that colorful picture and dream on top of that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Thank you, Uma madam, for joining us, and thank you, Deepika Shetty madam. And I would like to add one more point towards this. Aruna has asked a question. Without legislation or standards, planning is not possible. Okay, you cannot control and guide the development for the future development, right? It is essential. So without that, it will be out of control. As a physical planner, your prime role is to control and guide the development. That is not possible without legislation or standards. That is what I was thinking to convey this. Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Hello, ma'am. My question is to Deepika, ma'am. So for Shankaranarayana village, when you were talking about it, you said instead of taking the village alone, you had studied the overall regional dependencies and linkages. How did you quantify them with respect to the linkage specifically or the dependency specifically for this particular village?
Yeah. So I think it's there in the RAD. It influenced the RAD PFI guidelines also. But while I was presenting, I included both the villages as the context. So that slide is valid both for the Upunda and Shankaranarayana. And I said that the benchmarking of requirements will not be same for every village. We are rather looking, if you know the term regional city, are you familiar with the concept of regional city? What it means is you are creating network of resources, and as a whole network, it works as a city, not as a singular. So suppose I'll give you a random simple example, or maybe childish example, that the best school will be in one village, the best hospital will be in another village, the best, industry development will be in the third village. And each village will be located at a distance of, say, 20 kilometers. And the surrounding villages, including that, will have access to best education, best healthcare, best industry or income, within 5 to 10 kilometers. So it is a network of resources rather than a concentrated, like in the urban areas, what we say within a sector or a ward, we want so many schools, we want so many open spaces, we want so many clinics. So it is very localized infrastructure. Here we are looking at benchmarking very high quality infrastructure, but at a regional level, not at a localized, a singular level. So what would happen is the economic requirement or the restrictions that we have in rural areas, as well as the density, lack of density of population that we have to support that quality of infrastructure gets addressed, because we are not looking at very high-end infrastructure for each and every village. But as a network, within a 10, say 20 kilometers, I get very high-end infrastructure almost equal to a metro city. And this is already there in a way in Manipal, because Manipal itself was a rural area. And it has a international level university, bank, nationalized bank, and national best international education, as well as healthcare. But the governance is in another place, the industries is another place, other parts of development or lifestyle is in another place. But as a network, we have a metro city, say even equal to Mumbai, the facility. And I have spent 23 years of my life in Mumbai. So that's why it's easy for me to compare. So I did not feel lack of, urban infrastructure because of this network, because access to high quality infrastructure was possible even in a rural setup. So I was happy after living 23 years in Mumbai. I was still happy to settle in another 25 years in Manipal. And I felt quality of life is better because I have fresher air, less pollution, and best of both worlds, I would say, in terms of urban and rural infrastructure. However, certain infrastructure, I may have to travel a little more than an urban area. Okay. So, I think the plus point today, it's possible is because of internet connectivity. Like I'm talking to you. I don't have to travel from Manipal, which is very difficult, to Vijayawada to be in touch with you, or to share my knowledge and take your feedback and listen to ma'am or interact with all the esteemed guests. So this is possible with internet. So is education, so is e-commerce, so is governance and accuracy. Because of spatial mapping technologies, the accuracy can be as good as any urban area. So the distinction between rural and urban will also reduce because of that. Okay, so what I'm trying to put here across is we should look at development in a totally new way when we look at rural areas. We cannot go the same way as urban, because the situation and the scale and the benchmarking will be very different, and especially when we want to look at SDGs or quality of life. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am. I now invite Mr. Rajiv, Assistant Professor, SPAV, to deliver the vote of thanks.
So good evening all. It was a very lengthy session that we've had, and a very interesting session, I must say, because yes, it was a topic that is important for planners, but many a times, as Uma Madam was also telling, that we think that we do follow standards or there are standards, but even in academic exercises or planning projects, we might underplay the necessity or importance of the same standards. So with that, I take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks for today's session. Respected director, distinguished guests, deans and HODs, both our speakers, faculty from Department of Planning and Architecture who has joined us online and offline, all the students. We've had a larger number of students. Slowly they had to move out because of some urgencies. and all those who have contributed to the success of the commemoration of World Standards Day program organized as a part of Urban October 2023 at SPA Vijayawada. As we conclude this enlightening and inspiring program, I have the honor of delivering this thanks and expressing our heartfelt gratitude on behalf of Department of Planning SPA Vijayawada and all those who have made this event possible. Our sincere appreciation goes out to our esteemed speakers, Dr. Deepika Shetty, who has joined us online, and Ms. Uma Odisumali, Madam, for shedding light on the vital role of standards in urban and regional and rural planning. Both of your insights and expertise and the presentations have definitely enriched our understanding, emphasizing a very interesting theme of the shared vision for a better world, standards for sustainable development goals. So, Uma ma'am, just to conclude, whatever both the sessions that we've had, ma'am did speak on planning standards, the rationalization and implementation, what was her presentation title, wherein madam did introduce to us about planning standards, the evolution of standards, land being the finite entity that we are dealing with as planners, the visualization of need for standards through madam's practical experiences that she has gained over her years of experience of standards being there, standards not being there, both the cases, which was very interesting. The parameters that we consider, the reasons for the inadequacies that is there, the methods of implementations of the standards in the planning, the current trends in formulation and implementation of standards like indexing of TDR, quantum multiplication, etc. So all these were very interesting discussion that we've had, which Uma Madam was kind enough to share with the crowd of SPA Vijayawada here. And then Madam was bringing the focus of standards and the distribution requirement at the regional level also. And we've had Dr. Deepika Shetty, ma'am, who brought out the standards and the requirement in the rural areas with her topic on concept of spatial planning from the rural perspective using case studies of Upunda and Shankar Narayana, where ma'am was discussing her own project on Gram Panchayat Spatial Development Plan. And then seeing the region, the kind of insisting us to see regions holistically, linking aspects of vulnerability, resilience, building that into the standards also. Then ma'am slowly moved into introducing RDPFI, the thought process and the methodology, the need for categorization of villages, that not everything is same. We do not consider the larger region to be quite homogeneous. It is a heterogeneous space, and the need for benchmarking. And then with the most interesting aspect of linking it with the SDGs, etc. So to conclude, we can understand from both these discussions and what our director was speaking on, what the Dr. Adnarayan sir and Dr. Ayon was also kind of bringing out to us, that the role of standards in shaping our shared vision for a better world cannot be overstated. And all of us planners and architects build our plans based on these standards towards achieving the SDGs. And all of the contributions and discussions that we've had today have been invaluable in emphasizing how standards not only streamline spatial and physical development, but also contribute significantly to broader the sustainable development objectives that we are targeting. I take this opportunity to extend my special thanks to our chief patron of this program of Urban October SPAV 2023, our Honorable Director of SPA Vijayawada, Professor Dr. Ramesh Srikonda sir, who have very positively supported us in organizing this program. We would like to acknowledge the support from our Dean Academics, Dr. Ayan Tarafdar, for supporting in ideating of the set of programs and the need for conducting of such interesting ideas and thoughts. We would like to thank the dedicated team of Department of Planning headed by our head of the department, Dr. Adnarayan, for his continuous effort in mentoring and making this program and the forthcoming programs successful. In line with this Urban October program series, we celebrated World Habitat Day last Wednesday. Today we are commemorating World Standards Day. Next week we'll have set of programs on World Cities Day, and the last Wednesday, we'll be commemorating and concluding the session on World Town Planning Day. So we thank all faculty from both Department of Architecture and Planning and our all beloved students for being active listeners, and they were also actively engaging in the discussions. I thank the IT team and other staff for extending their timely support for the smooth running of the competition. Like every time, we have our very wonderful hosts, two of them from MURP this time, Laya and Aruna from MURP second year. Thank you to both of you for helping us out. Last but not the least, I want to thank all attendees, both in person and online. We've had some students from Manipal also joining us. Thank you, Deepika ma'am, for uh, like letting. It was good to have them also as listening to both the sessions. And all other staff for extending their timely support. So thank you very much, guys. So as we conclude today's session, I hope all of us who are sitting here, who are online, etc., carry forward the valuable insights that we've gained today into our work and studies both, continuing to champion the role of standards in achieving sustainable development goals and fostering a shared vision for a better world. Thank you very much. Have a great day ahead. We have a small evening left. So thank you. Enjoy. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you to all participants joining us online.
Thank you, sir. With that, we conclude today's event. Once again, I thank everyone who has joined us today for this event. Now, I request everyone to rise for the national anthem. As we draw curtains on today's event, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for all of your active participation and insightful contribution. Your engagement, passion, and dedication to have truly shown through, and we look forward to carrying this momentum into the future. Once again, thank you all for being part of this important initiative. Thank you, Deepika ma'am, for joining us today on this initiative.